Good morning. When we write, when we tell stories, whether it's a screenplay, a novel, whatever it is, the something to keep in the back of your mind that may not always be comfortable to think about is that when we ask for feedback, every note we receive from someone is valid. No matter how crazy, no matter how weird, no matter how infuriating, no matter how debilitating it may be to us as creative artists, every note has validity. Let me give you an example. Years ago, when I was a screenwriting student myself at George Brown College here in Toronto, we had one class where we were doing table reads of our screenplays, and mine was the one being table read. It was a love story between two fish in a pet shop. Um, and because one of the fish was saltwater and one of the fish was freshwater, they couldn't be in the same tank. And so communication happened sometimes between fish through the glass of the tanks. And so as the notes were being given, my classmates were telling me different ideas and thoughts they had while reading the scenes. Valid notes about character, about dialogue, about plotting, all those things that you want to hear or sometimes don't want to hear but need to hear. One of my classmates said, the one problem I have though is like I'm not buying the idea that they can talk through glass. Like that they'd be able to hear each other, that the fish on one side of the glass can say something and the fish on the other side of the glass can hear it. And as often happens in a table read or a group read situation, other students started to pile on top of that, right? Somebody says something that's been in the back of your head. They've enunciated something you were thinking but didn't know how to say. And so people pile on. It happens all the time. It's not malicious. It's not meant to gang up on you, although it can feel that way when you're receiving the feedback. But my response was not to defend myself. I could have. Sound travels better through a solid than it does a liquid. All sorts of reasons why it's not a problem. But ultimately, I asked a clarifying question. I said, so everyone around the table, thank you for the note, everyone around the table is good with the idea that these fish speak, that they speak in English, despite coming from different regions of the world, and that they can communicate with one another through speech. And everyone around the table was like, yeah, that's not a problem. We don't have a problem with that. And why would you? We've had what, a century in film and several more, all the way back to like the earliest storytelling, Aesop's fables of anthropomorphic animals. So the key was in getting that feedback was simply to say thank you. Not get upset, not ridicule the feedback, not try to defend myself, my stories, my characters. Just say thank you. Because the reality is, even if I can defend that point, even if I can rebut the feedback, it doesn't matter. It's still valid. Because somebody, and in this case, several, had that feeling, had that awkwardness with the story. They're probably not alone, right? Other people are going to see this story at some point, and they're possibly going to think the same thing. Does that mean I have to change my story for every piece of feedback? No, that's the difference. Just because a piece of feedback is valid and needs to be heard doesn't necessarily mean you have to change your story. That's your prerogative, ultimately. Unless someone's paying you to change your story because they won't make your film until, they won't publish your book until, that's the only time you have to consider it. And, it's still up to you even in those stages. But as the creator, as the artist, you get to choose what you make adjustments to. Because if you try to adjust to every piece of feedback you get, you're going to have this horrible, horrible mishmash of words that barely function as coherent thought, right? You just cannot adjust for everything. But again, that doesn't mean the feedback wasn't valid. It doesn't mean the feedback wasn't something you at least need to know about, right? So that you're not blindsided in another situation, so that you can be thinking about these things and have maybe a response to it later. If you've got a story you're working on, I've got a class coming up that starts a week tomorrow, so a week Tuesday, which is the 21st of January here at George Brown. It's going to be an online class, so it doesn't really matter where you are. Where we're going to be workshopping screenplays that students have written. Classmates, if you sign up for the class. So I'll put that information somewhere around this post. Like if you're interested, if you've got a story you're working on, a screenplay specifically that you're working on, and you want feedback, valid feedback, in some cases actionable feedback, come check it out. Again, it starts next Tuesday, the 21st of January. It's an online class, so you can be anywhere. It's 6 to 9 o'clock at night. 6 o'clock? 6:30 to 9:30, I think, actually. Eastern time. Come check us out. We've still got a few spots open. I wouldn't wait too long, though. Come find out. Put your work in front of a group of people. Find out how people respond to it. It can really hurt inside the chest, but by the same token, it's all necessary. At some point, you got to put it in front of people. I hope you come out. I hope you play. And if you don't, I understand. And I'll take feedback on the video if you want to give it to me. Thanks.